Hey, what's up, everybody? Fred Minnick here, and today I'm going to tackle a very sensitive subject, bourbon burnout. A lot of people are getting burned out of the bourbon space, and they're leaving. They're going to rum, they're going to scotch, or they're just giving up bourbon altogether and not even drinking beer. So I went to X and I asked people, what is causing bourbon burnout? And this is what they had to say. Now, here's the deal. The reason why this even came up is I've been doing a lot of reflection in the last couple of years as I've been writing a memoir about how I got into bourbon and about my bourbon career. That book will be coming out in February. Very excited about that. But upon that reflection, I started remembering all these people who just kind of quit the bourbon industry, whether they were brand ambassadors or writers or even distillers. They just left. And I've always wondered what happened to them. And I talked to them later on and, like, you know what? I just got burned out. And so I started thinking I've seen the same pattern with some of those friends I had in that 2015 time frame to 2020. I'm seeing those same patterns in consumers of just like people being frustrated with the bourbon space. So I went to X and I just asked some questions. I just asked a simple question of what do you think the number one cause for bourbon burnout is? And this is what people had to say. Wisco Sports Fan says the sheer amount of product and content about the products out there. I also think a lot of people in the hobby are burnt out because of the chase. This comment probably captures about 75% of what people said. And this thread has gotten more than 100 comments. It'll probably get about 200 when it's all said and done. I'll put a link in the description if you want to make a comment in it, but feel free to drop in the comments of this video as well. But I want to address this. The sheer number of products that are out there, I agree with that. There are too many products out there, and you have brands who are delineating the products that they have just by proof, and I think you need to do more than that. So we do have far too many SKUs on the shelves, and retailers don't know what to do with all of them, or even if they are all good. Okay, so let's take the other thing about the content. The content creators, I would fall in that category. I would say 1,000%. There's a lot of content out on bourbon, and there's a new expert kind of born every year, and they often provide a lot of good information out there. So I think if the content's bothering you, if that's causing you to burn out, I think you just got to find the right creator, the right person. Whether it's a book or a magazine or a YouTube channel, just follow the person that you like. And if you don't like someone, that person may develop into someone you may like. You don't gotta bash them or anything, but I'm all for people jumping in the space and providing information, new information especially. If you're just tasting something and giving your opinion on it, well, hey, that's your opinion. That's what I do. It's what I've done for 20 years. So I'd say I'm all for the content creators, especially the ones that get creative and provide something different. Can those people cause burnout? That's a hard one for me. That's a hard one for me because I think they might actually bring more people to the dance. Now, the last thing here is that people are burnt out on the chase. This was probably the number one reason why people left, is that they got tired of trying to find the bourbon they want. Now, the thing about that is we've been talking about that. I've been talking about that for my entire career. So I don't really know if it is I don't know how deep that cuts for some people, because especially now when there's a lot more bottles hitting the shelf, I don't feel like the hunt is as intense as it was, say, 3 years ago. So you're still not going to find Pappy, but I don't think most people who follow my channel or follow me are out there hunting Pappy. But that one has, I think you can just, in the last 20 years, you can just get like a little spinny graph, and every year that would be the number one reason that people leave. Eric, my good buddy Eric over at Bourbon Sherpa says, Marketing. Now, here's the thing about marketing. If a brand doesn't do well, everyone blames the marketers. So the marketers have to do their job to sell the whiskey. That's part of it. But the marketing could also encompass like everything to include the creators that are out there talking, right? So marketing can get annoying, especially when you are looking at the you looking at the burnout of like people overselling something that they don't have, that's not there. And I think marketing could absolutely cause burnout. I mean, I don't go to as many distillery invites as I used to because I cannot stand the marketing messages people send to me and that they say. So yes, I do agree with that, but I think I'm also at the curmudgeon phase where I know most of the BS from the truth. So and most of the marketing is BS. So Eric, I think I kind of agree with you, but I'll add the caveat: bad marketing, untrue marketing, or smoke and mirrors marketing. So Todd Father says he can't wait to talk to me about that. We do need to catch up, Todd. All right, so Matthew Raywald, also known as Aiden English from the WWE formerly, said rum. Now, my first struggle with burnout in bourbon, I wrote a rum book called Rum Curious, and I do have another rum adventure coming out next year. I don't know how much I can talk about it yet, but let's just say I'm doing a collaboration with a very famous Grammy Award-winning hip-hop band. So that'll be a lot of fun. I don't. Can I talk about that yet? Well, I talked about it. But rum is kind of like is what I cheat on bourbon with. I love rum. Like everyone's always like, "Hey, if you're a bourbon drinker, go to Scotch or go to cognac." I'm like, "No, go to rum." Rum to me is fantastic. And there's a little bit of the hunting aspect of it in rum. Like you got to really know what you're looking for because there's a lot more shenanigans in rum than there is in bourbon. As hard as that going to believe for a lot of you, because they can get away with a lot more, like adding sugar if it's not from a certain country. Okay, Brian Peace, we went to high school together, says hangovers. A lot of people didn't mention hangovers. A lot of people mentioned health. But hangovers getting rougher with age, you know, there's that old, it's not like when we were in high school, Brian, where we were, we didn't feel it the next day. You definitely can if you overconsume. But here's the thing, when I have to taste professionally, and I know I have to taste a lot, even if I'm spitting, that can have an effect on me. So what I do is I prepare my body. I load my body up with magnesium. I make sure I'm like pounding electrolytes through like coconut water, things like that. And I have a lot of high fat so that's in my belly to process it. So there are things that you can do if you know you're going to consume a lot. Hey, we got this guy here, Koltke, I think I said that name. It says, people like you causing flame out in some ways and FOMO. You haven't done this on purpose. It's just a relative result in covering the trend. Hey, look, I get it. That's absolutely true. And I've felt my own personal, like when I have said I like something and I used to buy it all the time, I have felt that. I felt that, and I felt it when my friends have done that too, and when a competition that I'm not a part of has done that. I mean, that's part of it, and I think that if we are the cottage industries that cover bourbon, that help bourbon, whether tourists or whatever, I mean, that's all a byproduct of people liking it. If I went away, somebody else would pop up. And, I started this 20 years ago, and I fell in love with it, and there have been bumps in the road like anything else, but I can't imagine myself doing anything else for the past 20 years. So, yeah, I understand that sometimes that I and other critics do get a lot of blame for it, but that's part of the territory. We get to do this, and I get to go and drink bourbon with people for a living, and I'm pretty excited about that. So, but I also think that if you have a job this cool and you can't take that heat, then you should get out of the kitchen. So blame me all day long. Won't hurt my feelings a bit. Okay, so we got the Grump Shaker talking about the allocated bottles. That came up a lot. To that point, I think there is a lot of fake allocation. I think people just make something rare. I think a lot of distilleries figured out a way to build hype around something that didn't deserve hype, and once that what's the word I'm looking for? Once that outline was created, everyone started following it. So I think Grump is right. The hype over allocated bottles that certainly are not always as good as they are hyped up to be. I think that's a good point. Another comment about media. Jeff Bach says, I'm only 5 years in, not burnt out at all. Learned real early to enjoy the craft and store picks, not chasing unicorns. So that's what we would call a positive attitude, Jeff. Keep it up. Chris says, cost and frustration. I buy bourbon to drink it, not to sip it, not to admire it on the shelf, not to collect it. Drink it. The fact that I rarely find my favorite, Buffalo Trace, is frustrating. Yep, I agree with that, Chris. And Buffalo Trace, if you were to take all the complaints about bourbon from people who love bourbon, you will find that everyone almost always points to Buffalo Trace as being the reason why, that they are frustrated. So is that Buffalo Trace's fault that everybody's chasing them? Yeah, maybe. And maybe they got the secret sauce on the whiskey marketing combo, but they've certainly figured out how to frustrate all of us and make us all want their product. So they're doing a pretty good job there. Nikki Biscuits. I can blank buy what I want to drink when I want to drink it. Common. Everybody's saying that. Steve Boston. The sheer volume of meh to poor products at a premium prices is overwhelming. That is an underrated comment right there. I'm going to say that again. It's an underrated comment. I know how many $200 products that are out there that to me aren't even as good as Evan Williams Black Label. So good point. It's good to keep going through these, see if there's anything that's in here that wasn't really brought up. Mike mentions rehab. I hope you get better, Mike. Flask says same thing that killed craft beer. Availability, pricing, and sheer volume of limited releases. I think that is absolutely accurate. There are so many limited releases that do not actually measure up to being as good as the price tag says it should be. Jeff Paul says oversaturation. Joe Jets Nation 0-16. I'd love to understand the meaning by that handle. Did you see a fall in 2008? I think we were on a massive high with extra income from not going out in 2020. So purchasing boomed. That's true. Now we don't have that extra income, so it's mellowing out. I'm not jumping on $90 bourbons like I used to, bottles like I used to. No, in 2008, that's actually the year that I pinpointed as the bourbon boom, like what we would consider to be that like next wave of bourbon boom of kind of like, it had been kind of coming up like that, and then it went like that. That was the year that, if I recall, Jim Beam White Label had dang near double-digit increases in sales. So the limited edition products in the early 2000s were all spiking. But the mainstay everyday products outside of Maker's Mark were not. And 2008 was the year that everyday bourbons were starting to spike. So there was definitely not a fall in 2008. But I just wanted to address some of these. They're all about the same. A lot of people making very similar comments about the lack of availability, the pricing, too many content creators. So this is kind of the summation of it all. But one thing that I think that has, to me, those are all personal choices. But when someone starts bringing up health, and when someone starts bringing up like, they had incidents and stuff like that, that's real, and all of it's all the rationale is real. Don't get me wrong, but it's a very different situation to be, fighting for your life because you were drinking too much, than like being upset over $90 to $200 products. So if you go through those comments, you will see a lot of people bringing up health. And someone said in a comment that this hobby is like Russian roulette, and that's something I take very seriously. And I think that over 20 years has been why I have not burned out. I have moments. I have moments where I take breaks. I have moments where I don't review. I have moments where I try to take as much time off as I can from sipping anything. And I've certainly spent the last 2-3 years getting healthy, through jujitsu and weightlifting. And I love the sauna. I think the sauna is like, it has been the greatest blessing I have found in the last, couple of years. I love the sauna. But I just think that health is something that a lot of people pick up bourbon in their 20s, enjoy it in their 30s, but they get to their 40s and you're starting to look in the mirror. Those gray hairs are coming in. They've got kids who are about to be teenagers, maybe they have grandkids, and you just start looking at life differently. And so that to me is the one where, people leaving, I'm like, I hope you're okay. All the rest, it's just all kind of personal preference. There's ways around to not spend $90 on a bourbon. There's ways around not being frustrated by content creators. You don't got to watch this video. You don't got to watch anybody's video. You don't got to read anything. You just go to the liquor store and buy what you want, when you want, how you want. That's basically bourbon right there. That's how it used to be. But then bourbon became cool, and a lot of people jumped on the bandwagon. And that's where I kind of like circled and pinpointed as like, people checked out because they didn't like the people that were getting in it. And that I understand. I won't go to certain restaurants because I know certain people are there and they annoy the living shit out of me. So I avoid places that I like because I know that someone's going to be there. And it's not just in Kentucky. When I'm back home in Oklahoma, like, I know someone's going to be there. I do not want to run into them, so I don't go there. So I think just human nature. Just human nature. But I would love to continue examining this. Are you on the verge of leaving bourbon? Are you bored with bourbon? Are you burned out? Have you stopped chasing bourbon? What is it? A lot of people have all the bottles they need, and they don't need any more information. But I'm fascinated by this subject. I want to know. Put your comments in the video or go over to my X feed and let me know your thoughts there. That's going to do it for this video. I appreciate you tuning in. Be safe out there and take care of your health and take care of yourself and your family. Cheers.